the number one way for your business to fail is for it to get ruined before it opens, right? That's the entire value proposition that we're providing here at Block, is to make sure that doesn't happen. If you anticipate it will take $300,000 to open up your store, and it opens 3 months past the time that you had expected, and it ends up costing all in $475,000. Now you have multiple months worth of missed revenue that you have totally missed out on. You have paid on the lease of the location that's providing no income. And also you had to come up somehow with $175,000, whether it's back through the SBA within a loan or out of your personal finances. But regardless, somebody has to pay that back. And whatever they've given you for that 5 to 7 year projection no longer exists. Now, if you want to still hit those same numbers, you have to put up 180% worth of revenue on top of what you're expecting. The last thing you want to do when you open up a location is be scared and feel like, you've been put in a compromised position. And that's what we look to avoid there.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Reframe First. I'm Oleksij, and let me welcome our today's guest, Rogue Schott, Head of Franchise Expansion at Block Renovation. So, hi Rogue, it's great having you here.
Absolutely, I appreciate you inviting me today.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for joining. So, Block Renovation and franchise expansion. So what do you do? Is Block Renovation a franchise by itself? And what do you do there? Could you tell us?
Great question. So Block Renovation is not a franchise ourselves. So we are actually a massive marketplace for contractors and clientele. So what I do personally, I am head of franchise expansion at Block. We partner with franchises throughout the entire country that are emerging and opening up new locations. Only brick and mortar is what we focus on. So that'd be QSR, retail, a lot of health and fitness brands, things like that. And we provide pre-construction services. So we provide an introduction from the franchisors after they sign a franchise agreement. And we can introduce them to architects if they don't have somebody internally that they utilize. But majority of our value is provided around the contractors that we provide and what goes on thereafter.
Yeah, I see. So what is a typical phase when the franchisees come to you, and at which phase do they come to you, and what is like most common questions they come with?
It depends on if they have any experience or not, to be honest. I believe it's upwards of 85% of franchisees are first-time business owners. So they're totally new to absolutely everything across the board. So we fill in gaps on their questions around how much a project generally costs, how long it generally takes for the project to be completed, what next steps are essentially from the point of handoff up until they open up the doors on the location. Those are different for each and every project, so there's not a simple blanket statement. But as we, engage with more and more brands, we're able to provide more clarity to everyone.
Yeah, I see. And how long does it usually take to complete a project? And like, what is it like sizes of the project? It could be something small, something big.
Okay, so let's say a QSR project comes in, a juice bar smoothie. From the time they get introduced to me, if they have plans in hand, we source contractors for them. We introduce the contractors. The turnaround time on a proposal is generally about 2 weeks. After we review the proposal, negotiate on their behalf, it generally rolls into about 3 to 4. So I would say within a month, we could get a contractor selected. In a perfect scenario, if the permits are ready, the construction duration is generally around 8 to 12 weeks, give or take.
Yeah, it's fast.
Yeah, it is. And that's why it's so important to have some assistance on the front end. firm bid deadlines, quick turnaround times on revisions, things like that, because it's very easy for it to unravel and go from 12 to 16 weeks in totality to 5 to 6 months. And then at that point, you're paying on empty space, which
Yeah,
nobody wants to do.
yeah, yeah. Are you usually contacted by franchisors, or to do franchisees come directly to you?
A majority of our business is through franchisor introductions. So we work with a partnership model, very loosely iterated, just uh, stating that we're here to provide contractors and our pre-construction services to franchisees as they sign on. Um, as they join the network for the franchise themselves, we get a warm introduction from them. We do get the occasional franchisee that reaches out to us directly, but not nearly as frequently as we get the warm handoffs from the franchises.
So basically, when franchisee signs a franchise agreement with franchisor advises, okay, go to these guys, and they will help you like open the location.
Absolutely. So yeah, we get a email introduction. At that point, I schedule a discovery call with them just to first off introduce myself, my role with not only them but also with the brand that they had signed on with, what we're looking at over the duration of my time that will be with them, which is up until they sign the contract with the contractor, and outline some expectations in terms of what they should be looking out for in the coming weeks.
What are the most typical problems that you have with working with franchisees, especially with a lot of new franchisees, first time business owners? So they come with quite weird, but mostly they are typical questions. What are the questions that they come with, and what are
Um,
their common struggles? I would say.
yeah, absolutely. A lot of it is tied around how much a project will cost. They always want to ask me how much a project will cost. I can tell them a range that I've seen, just even over the past 3 months, but it varies so wildly on a few different pieces of criteria. One would be the location of the project. If we're building in LA, it will cost substantially more than if we were doing a project in Cleveland, just simply due to the location. Um, it also is determined by what the space was utilized for previously. If it was a retail shop that didn't have all the plumbing fixtures in alignment for a restaurant, then that will impact the cost of the project as well. If it just so happened to be a similar concept that was there previously, then we can reutilize a lot of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing that was installed initially to save them some money. So that would be one of them. Another question is um, the timeline is always at the top of mind. So they intertwine big time, because they want to ensure that the money that they're putting up front will translate into revenue as soon as possible, because they don't want to pay on an empty space. That way, they're missing out on revenue. They're having to pay out of pocket for the lease itself. The franchise also doesn't like that either because that's not producing more revenue for the business as well, and provide some obstacles in terms of expanding also. So we try to provide some clarity there and make sure they understand everything. The main goal with all of this at the end of the day is to make sure they fully understand everything from the initial point of contact through the contract, because we're talking about an average of about $350,000 per project on these, and you don't want to sign that blind. You want to make sure you understand what you're getting into, and everybody's on the same page from the get.
Yeah, that was also my question. Well, you mentioned like 350 dollars per project. Is it something average? Well, what are the usual costs of brick and mortar project?
Yeah, so if we're doing a full scale build out of it, I would say anywhere in the range of like 250 to 400. I see a lot land between 350,000, and it can fluctuate, and uh, based off of the criteria I said earlier. Some concepts operate with a much larger space as well, but most Counter serve restaurants are within the realm of about 1,100 square feet to 1,500, somewhere in there. So about $200 to $300 per square foot is generally what it rounds out to.
Hmm. And what is a typical like business segments that come to you? Is it only restaurants, or is it like some fitness or retail stores or whatever? What is the split there? In-
Yeah, so we do a lot of restaurant concepts right now. Um, Healthy eating is super popular, so we have a lot of juice bars, smoothies, things like that. A lot of people are beginning to incorporate protein as well. So we work with a lot of those guys. That going along with the healthy foods is the fitness brands. They are expanding very quickly right now, and they have a very it's much easier to anticipate what the cost of their projects will be because there's not as much plumbing work and things like that involved within it. But we do a lot of those. I also have some partners that are in the education sector for children, for coding, even some daycare facilities that we've partnered with as well in the past. But I would say probably 60 to 70% of all of my clients as of right now are restaurant affiliated in some magnitude.
how do these kinds of projects differ? Quite likely, daycare and restaurant differ in complexity and in like in the list of providers that needs to like come into play. How do they differ?
Yeah, so there's a lot substantially different requirements in terms of the ventilation system required for a restaurant, especially when we're including a full kitchen. So we're talking about a full-on grease trap that has to be installed, a ventilation hood to make sure that the smoke, the steam, and all of that is escaping the property, and not flowing out into the dining area as well. Something that comes up across the board for all these that's a little bit different depending on what sector they're in is the bathrooms and the ADA compliancy as well. There's a maximum amount of people that can be included within a daycare at any given time, and things like that. Uh, it's also location dependent. California is a little bit stricter in terms of their fire codes and things like that than they are in the Midwest, just because they're so apt to, unfortunately, the fires and things like that
Yeah,
occur
yeah,
out.
yeah. Okay. Um, you mentioned that you are a marketplace of service providers. How does it work?
Great question. So we have the largest network of commercial contractors in the entire country. We do a very thorough onboarding process of them prior to providing any introductions whatsoever. So they have to pass a few pieces of criteria checkpoints, such as a valid license in the state that we're operating the business in. They have a minimum of $2 million worth of insurance coverage across the board. They are able to pass a background check. We provide that on the company, but also take it a step further, also on the contractor themselves on a personal level, just to make sure we can not introduce anybody that has pending lawsuits, essentially avoid any issues before they get too deep into the conversation. And along with that, we want to make sure that they can provide references. We've been running a franchise division between Block Renovation and formerly Build Zoom, which was acquired by Block Renovation in Q4 of last year, for about 6 years now. So it's really given us the opportunity to identify who works best, um, and at the same time continue adding on more contractors that specialize in this space to make sure that we're providing the best experience for our franchisees.
Yeah. Is it some kind of curated list, or is it like marketplace as a marketplace? Can a
It,
franchisee
it
come over and choose? Oh,
That's a good question. So it's a marketplace with a point person. So as a franchisee is introduced to us, we have a specific list of contractors that are affiliated within that specific market. We have access to that list, and we don't just blindly add people. We do our own vetting process based off of the piece of information that we get from the franchisee, such as their timeline, their budget, what they find most important in terms of qualifying a contractor from their own standpoint. And at that point, we start off with a list of about 15 to 20 different contractors that work in that area and narrow it down to a top 3 to 5 generally and provide a personal introduction to the franchisees from
Uh-huh. And then continue work. And then they get in touch with the contractors. Do you control the whole process of like getting the location open?
there.
Or do you just give them a list of contractors? Here's design, here's like architectural plan.
Good question. Good question. So yeah, we do a thorough vetting call with the contractors in advance. It's a very personal introduction to the franchisees. So we have a central point of contact there for communication. Um, I have follow-up calls with all stakeholders. That will be franchisors, franchisees, contractors, excuse me, and anybody else involved in the decision-making process. We meet with the franchisees, especially during the bidding process, at least once or twice a week. And just to reiterate on the fact that they understand absolutely everything, identify any outstanding questions, and make sure everybody is aligned as the project progresses.
Yeah, yeah. And then they just start working together. Or do you control all the process until it's done?
We do not interject ourselves during the actual construction phase unless we are asked to. We don't really provide too much value at that point. We had done so much effort on the front end to hopefully avoid needing to be involved during the construction process. So that's making sure that the contract is fair for all parties involved, that the timeline is set in stone, that they're held liable if they do go over the timeline, to where there's some liquidated damages that can take place, cover lost time, revenue opportunities, things like that for the franchisees. So that way everybody's covered at the end.
Yeah. Okay, I see. What's probably the most labor intensive part of your job? Like what
Of my
takes the
job,
most time? Yeah. Like,
uh, labor intensive, I would say reviewing the bids by far. Yeah. So the bids come in. Unfortunately, there's no standard format in the construction industry to provide a proposal. Sometimes we get a very, very blunt number with no breakdown of where the money is being allocated throughout the entire project. And then sometimes we get it broken down to where you know how many screws they intend to use as they complete the entire thing. Yeah, so you understand as they come in, it is so incredibly difficult to do a comparison between the two. So that's where we provide a lot of value, do the follow conversations with the contractors. Um, I also give them a template that I request them to utilize anyways to input the numbers into. Sometimes they don't always play by the rules, but if their numbers look appealing off the cuff, we have to make sure that it's fully inclusive of everything, because otherwise it leads to change orders, and the project cost is substantially more than what we had anticipated when we signed the contract in the first place. And that's the last thing we.
yeah, for sure. Why don't you automate this kind of work?
Why don't I automate it?
Yeah.
So I do. I automate some. So AI is fantastic. We have a tool that we've been sharpening over the past 4 years now, that we run internally. As the proposals come in, we feed it in there. It provides us feedback, um, give us some clarity on some of the questions we should look for. Unfortunately, it does come back with some feedback that doesn't quite make sense. Or there's some things that are lost in translation between the conversations that we've had with the parties that's not exactly included within the proposals and things like that. So we give that a thorough review up front, because we don't want them to adjust something that's been decided outside of what's within the written proposal itself. But we do lean on that quite a bit internally as well.
Yeah. So you do automate. So that's great. Could you tell us a bit more about what you do with AI tools? You mentioned you have some interesting software, and what do you do at all at your company with AI tools nowadays?
Great question. So we provide a specific folder for each brand as they come in. This brand will provide us an FDD which outlines all the details that they provide to the franchisees as they sign on. We get an understanding what their expectations are on the cost of the projects, um, preliminary numbers for FF and E, if they are including that within their package that they're providing, essentially like a responsibility matrix. Along with that, we input their lease information, a landlord work letter, the plans, the proposals as they come in, absolutely everything, kind of feeds off each other to make sure that there's no overlap there, that everybody's bidding on the exact same project, because some of these documents are substantial and the contractors are extremely busy on their end as well. And it's very easy to overlook some fine-tuned details that may not look like a big deal, but if we're talking about a $20,000 to $30,000 price difference just off of something being mislabeled, we need to identify that off the bat. So we provide essentially every stitch of information that we possibly can for the franchise and utilize that specific portion for the new locations as they open
Have
up.
you already automated reading the FDDs? Because all of them are quite different. Or do you do it like manually and extract all that information from FDDs? Because FDDs usually is like a long document.
Oh yeah, they're very long, 200 plus pages. So yeah, we upload all of that in there, and it just deciphers a few of the different portions of it that are most
So
valuable.
yeah, you need only some certain parts of the FDDs. Awesome. What else do you do with AI?
So we AI helps us source potential franchises. So we are members of the IFA, International Franchise Association, and we are with all their newsletters. A lot of different newsletters that aren't directly IFA affiliated but franchise affiliated that make postings about franchises that are rapidly expanding, may have signed a new deal, um, are really hot, popular, providing a lot of revenue. Gives us the opportunity to understand who our target audience should be that we haven't been approaching already. So we take that opportunity. It gives us a talking point when we do reach out to them. Say hypothetically, hey, Bob's Chicken, I saw recently that you guys had signed on 18 new franchisees in the state of Texas. I'm currently working on 7 of them myself. I'd love to have the opportunity to discuss with you and see if we could, be a good fit to work with each other. So it provides a warm introduction there, and along with that, also some follow up cadence to make sure that we stay in line.
Yeah. So you can get in touch with franchisors after after you worked with some of their franchisees already.
Correct. Well, that and some competitors as well. So the concepts are all slightly different, but they are very similar. 10 different chicken restaurants have different branding, different millwork, different signage, different colors, but the main parts of the project are essentially identical across the board. So if you get really good at doing it for 2 to 3 brands, then you can definitely do it for another 5 to 10.
Yeah, for sure. Is competition in your space big or not, or are you somewhat unique in the space?
There isn't direct competition what we provide due
Yeah.
to our business model. So there are other companies that provide pre-construction services. They pay a retainer to them. They generally operate off of a flat fee or a percentage of the total project value. At the end of the day, is where they take their cut. The revenue model at Block is based off of the contractors. So the contractors pay us directly. We do never invoice the client whatsoever. And avoids any mismanaging there. So they don't have to come out of pocket for anything throughout the entire process. They don't have to include anything special within their SBA loans. They just, utilize our services, and the contractors pay us for being able to have the opportunity to engage with them in the first place.
That feels like a quite common model within the franchise space, that the franchisee is not paying for anything other than the location. So franchisee is not paying the consultant services, and they're not paying for your services either. Well, yeah, it's either franchisors are paying or constructor vendors, construction vendors are paying. Yeah, and awesome. I think we've covered pretty a lot of everything. That was a quick one, but uh, is there anything else you would like to add on top of what we discussed? Because I'm kind of out of questions. I had a lot of them, but we already discussed those.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've recognized is
Yeah,
that where we provide the most value is where franchises begin to expand at an exponentially quicker rate than what they were initially.
yeah.
Um, it is very feasible for the C-suite within a franchise to keep tabs on 2 to 3, maybe even 4 ongoing projects at any given time. But sometimes they sign on with a franchise broker and they just totally take off. All of a sudden, we're selling 15 to 20 a month.
How do you handle it?
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, but your workload is just, I mean, exponential at that point. Um, and if you take a step back and just look at the numbers of it, let's say there's 4 contractors on each of those locations for 20 projects. That's 80 different people. That also means there's 20 different franchisees that are asking a ton of questions. So that's 100 people that you have to juggle at any given time to fill in all the gaps across the board while you're trying to still expand. So you have a finite amount of time, and you have to either make the decision: do I hire on somebody internally within a W-2, come out of our budget essentially to cover this, which some teams do, or do you outsource it? It provides some fractional support to somebody such as Block Renovation or somebody else that does this in the space, because suddenly what you were really good at and what got you to this point is no longer your job. Your job totally translates from being great at selling franchises, great on identifying new markets and expanding, to dealing with phone calls and reading bids and reading plans and answering all these questions that you didn't exactly sign up for initially. And it starts falling off on everything you were good at initially. So, um, yeah, that's probably the largest thing that I've identified over the years is, the teams that recognize that early on, they continue expanding for years later on. The ones that let it unravel and get away from them, you end up playing catch up. So it's something very important to identify as early as possible.
That's a great problem to have, but it's still a problem that you have.
And absolutely.
And are these bursts common in the space? How often do they happen? Is it somewhat seasonal, or just a great mixture of like good franchise and good broker who just bursted? How does
Good question.
it happen? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. Um, a lot of it depends on what's popular. In the past 12 to 18 months, uh, health and wellness based products have been extremely popular. So fruit and juice bar, smoothies concepts have blown up. Um, it's very easy to expand on those. Um, Everybody is also operating out of smaller uh, areas. Very few projects are moving forward with a dine-in concept anymore. They are, doing a counter serve. There may be 5 to 6 tables inside, but it's a take it and go. It's just kind of rolling with the times. Everybody wants things right now. They want it on the go. That's why people enjoy social media so much, is because they get to flick through, get on to the next one. So, but that's what's popular for right now. In 5 years, it could be totally different. It was chicken restaurants 2 to 3 years ago. There was a ton of chicken restaurants. Now they're starting to, die down substantially. Dave's is doing fantastic, but it just became extremely saturated. So it's first to the market, helps out tremendously, and identifying what the market wants.
Do franchisees ever make profits? because like they need to buy the franchise, they need to open the location, so it's like it's and they need to operate, they need this ramp period, so it's a lot of money that they need to put into the franchise. And the question is, if you know it's based on trends, and if it changes in a few years, do they even make this profits, or do they turn the cash around? Like put X amount of money in, like in the first year, and then like over next, I don't know, 5 years, take 20% of that out, and then you know the franchise is dead, basically, because like it has changed. So as you mentioned, people do not want to sit in the restaurant; they want to take and go. So it's a different concept.
Yeah, it is. It's very different. So all of this is covered in the discovery phase with the franchises and the franchisees. The conversation goes along with it. So they cover uh, their recent revenue, what they've been, bringing in, what their median is, what their mean is, and essentially what their path to profitability looks like. Generally over like a 5 to 7 year period, because nobody wants to they want to open up a business, not a job. You don't want to just tread water and get just enough money out of it to get by. You want to sign up with the right team, make sure you have the right support internally to make sure that you are a priority to create revenue, not only for the brand, but for you and your family as well. Um, Sometimes I've seen numbers shared that are unrealistic. Sometimes they even sell themselves short a little bit, but a lot of that comes down into the due diligence that the franchisee themselves does, reaching out to not only the best performing franchise location, but to the most recent, I think is what's most important. What is the experience you had when you opened up 6 months ago? If you were to do it again right now, what would you take into consideration? Because anybody can introduce you to the top 5 to 10 locations, and they look very promising. But if that's not the same concept and mindset across the board, then it's not really the full story.
Yeah. How often do you have to repurpose existing locations? Like where I live, it's quite often we have like this seasonal restaurants or cafes, so they open for one season, and next season is they come over and it's completely different location already. So there's completely different franchise over there. How often do you have to do it, like in your business?
Yeah. So in terms of just like changing out a location for a totally new business.
Yeah, yeah, just
Yeah.
repurposing things, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all the time. That's what
all the
majority of these
time.
projects are, is repurposing a previous owner. So uh, a lot of that, the reason why they close, that to take a step back, the number one way for your business to fail is for it to get ruined before it opens, right? So that's the entire value proposition that we're providing here at Block, is to make sure that doesn't happen. If you anticipate it will take $300,000 to open up your store, and it opens 3 months past the time that you had expected, and it ends up costing all in $475,000. Now you have multiple months worth of missed revenue that you have totally missed out on. You have paid on the lease of the location that's providing no income. And also, you had to come up somehow with $175,000, whether it's back through the SBA within a loan or out of your personal finances. But regardless, somebody has to pay that back. And whatever they've given you for that 5 to 7 year projection no longer exists. Now, if you want to still hit those same numbers, you have to put up 180% worth of revenue on top of what you're expecting, which is extremely overwhelming. And the last thing you want to do when you open up a location is be scared and feel like you've been put in a compromised position. And that's what we look to avoid there, because we unfortunately we do see it very often across the board. It's not just franchises, but it's also mom and pop shops that have a very preconceived notion of what it costs to open up and operate a business. Um, a lot of times I see people uh, wanting to compare construction costs now back to a project they did in 2005. And we all wish that was still the case, but unfortunately it's not. Your home isn't worth the same it was 20 years ago. Nothing is. Gas isn't. And everything increases, sometimes substantially more than what you would like for it to. But that's just the name of the game. That's why it's good to make sure that you have this full understanding before you get in the first place.
How many of your clients do have an understanding of how much they need to put in? Because it's disclosed in FDD, but still, what you mentioned, if you're delaying on the construction project, it means like you're paying the lease, and there is a lot of like the costs are always higher than, than what you expect. It's always true. But how many of your clients do really understand the cost before getting into this business?
So the FDD will provide a high and a low cost in there. So
Yeah.
it will say it can cost between $250,000 to $450,000. They always want it to be the 250. In the perfect scenario, it very, very rarely is. And that's with everything going according to plan. It's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So the 250, like I said, totally perfect scenario, absolutely everything falls into place, and is still generally a little bit higher than that. Oftentimes they get the loan for 250 because they think that's what it's going to cost. They've Googled themselves into a hole. That's the I should have mentioned this earlier. One of the most common traps I run into is they do their own personal research, and AI and Google and other sources that they find online tell them how much their project will cost. And those metrics didn't actually view the space itself. They didn't understand what voltage the electricity is lined up for. They don't understand where the plumbing is sourced at. Do we have to drill into the floor? Do we have to only work on nights and weekends because we don't want to disturb other tenants, which will increase the cost of the project by 15 to 20%. These are all things that aren't generally taken into consideration, and that definitely end up at the bottom line for the budget on a project. So that's why we like to get literally every single piece of information that we possibly can on the location, to where we can identify that stuff in advance, and then try to give them a preliminary understanding of what they're getting into, so that way they don't get sticker shock, because nobody likes to fully expect a number that's 50% lower than where 5 bids have come in at. Um, that at the same time, that's why it's also extremely important to get 3, 4, maybe 5 different bids on a project, because um, generally the average of those bids is what your project will cost. Um, the super low ones generally never good because they are missing large scope items. Those are generally the ones that come in with no breakdown of where the money is being allocated. It's just claiming that they'll do your project for substantially cheaper, but it never does. It always unravels, develops into a essentially money trap, and you know, leading back to what we discussed a moment ago, unfortunately, businesses end up closing eventually.
Yeah. So that's an interesting consideration that on the average bid is what it could actually cost. Because
Correct.
you choose something below average, but it will end up costing average.
It generally does in some magnitude. Now, the middle bid, I mean, that's not always the best one by any stretch. At the same time, uh, my goal is also to not just take that bid, but negotiate on behalf of the client. Can we shave off a percentage point or two of what your profit margins are? Um, can we value engineer perhaps some different material that is very similar but comes in at a 20% less cost? Can we get another subcontractor to bid on the electrical portion because all of your numbers look good, but your electrical is a bit higher than everybody else's? Can we get another look at that? Um, to incrementally chip away at it, and make sure that like I said, they're put in the best position when they open up the business in the first place.
Awesome. You got really great these observations about franchises like changing like every couple of years, and because trends are changing. This is something I have not heard from consultants, which who I interviewed, because they have different perspective and they're eager to sell the franchise. What other observations do you have in the industry? What other trends are you seeing? Because this is really great one. I didn't consider it, and it's actually reality because trends do change, and people want
Yeah.
to experience different business cases, business scenarios. What else do you see?
So there's the age of AI going on right
Yeah,
now,
yeah. How
and
does it change the
how
franchise?
they yeah, and and how they implement that into their day to day differs wildly. You know, their internal CRM in terms of what they utilize as they're selling the franchises is different across the board. Their outreach cadence, if they have somewhere internal, essentially like a Kanban board that shows where each of the opening locations are at concurrently, to where they can identify their roadmap over the next 6 months, give or take, so they can anticipate revenue, things like that. Um, Everything is just an API webhook away from being fully integrated to each other. But it's substantially easier to do that now than it was even 5 to 10 years ago, um, utilizing the technology we have at hand. So if we can, you know, begin plugging into each other, essentially, what we have internally, the numbers that go along with it, to where that way you can see exactly what's going on the inside, as you're running your own margins
Is it already
at any
happening?
given time. Sorry,
Is
what's
it
that?
already, is it already happening? Of like franchisors integrating with you via APIs
We're
to know the
we
costs?
Good question. So not as of yet, but that's something that we would like to get implemented here at some point. Um, the there is a lack of communication outside of what's going on internally between brand to brand, company to company, and especially when you're working together as a client, there's definitely an opportunity to bridge that gap there, and that's what I think is most important as of right now, to make sure everybody is on the same page concurrently, a central source of truth instead of never-ending email threads back and forth. We just have the same charts. We look at them together at any given time, and have the access to the information for all parties involved. That means that you don't have anything hidden behind closed doors, and everybody can look at everything in real time across the board.
how, how, how advanced in technology, how technical are usually the franchisors or franchisees? Because they're about running business, I guess, not about technology and integrating APIs into HFAI.
Yeah, so yeah, that definitely wouldn't be something that a franchisee would incorporate. We would have to start off with the franchisors or the C-suite of the company, to see if we can get something integrated. Um, at the same time, you don't want to be the guinea pig on it. You don't want to be the first person to try it out. So it will take some iterations to get to that point in the conversation. But that's something that we've discussed and tinkered with quite a bit internally here at Block, is to find an avenue for everybody to log in together, see the same things, slightly different dashboard for the franchisor than the franchisee. So that way they could get an overarching look of everything that they have going on concurrently, essentially from the same view that I would look at if I were looking inside of their profile, to where, like I said, just, m- there's actually more information there, but we don't have to have as many direct points of contact. It's just, at your whim at any point that you like
No.
to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I see. Look, since I'm running a software company, I'm always interested in what can be built for franchisors or for different players, for franchisors, for franchisees, for them to benefit from. Is there any piece of software that you think would like help the market, help these players on the market?
Um, I,
Maybe we can build it. I don't know.
yeah, no, I definitely think there are some to be built. I in the franchise space, what we've been discussing throughout this entire podcast, it isn't brought up often enough in general. I've been to numerous conferences, I've been to many seminars, I've spoken to many franchise teams. They focus on scaling, they focus on sales, they focus on revenue, they focus on all those things. But the 3 to 4 months between signing and open and beginning construction or even opening up the location, it isn't talked about. Majority of these teams are requesting that the franchisee find their own contractors. They sometimes they have to find their own architect, or even find their own space without having somebody identify one that would be most profitable for the business. And there's tools out there that can provide that for you. Uh, Without them even realizing it. So um, I think that's just an entirely untapped market right now in terms of what we're providing right now to literally just help you out. Take some load off your shoulders and help set up your franchisees for success. If you have somebody internally for it, fantastic. If not, it's good to lean on somebody else. The number one thing I've learned in project management is how to become a professional delegator, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
because that's what it all boils down to. You want to put the best person in charge of each and every portion of your business, of your project, of whatever it is that you're working on at any given time. Um, it's better to be a master of one or than a jack of all trades, because then you essentially just spread yourself too thin and you actually never get anything accomplished the way it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. That was a great discussion. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that. Is there anything else you would like to add on top of that before we wrap it up?
Um, Outside of everything we've discussed, I would just like to have the opportunity to share with the audience. Always open for more conversations. Even if we wouldn't be a great direct partner for you, the franchise space is known for connections. At the end of the day, it's a very very niche market, and it's very much of who you know than what you know. So sharing contacts with anybody is always extremely helpful, because oftentimes you end up providing an introduction offhand that you don't even recognize, could be filling a void for somebody without you recognizing. So it's always good to connect, contact. I'm always available via phone, text, email, attend a lot of conventions, things like that. And, you know, I'm not a sales guy. I just like to be upfront with who I'm helping out. Try to be as transparent as possible, and make sure everybody ends up winning at the end of the day.
Awesome, for sure. Thanks a lot, Tork, for this discussion, and good luck.
I appreciate it. Well, thanks, Oleksij, and look forward to connecting with you again here soon.
Sure.